the worst, most impactful people might be some of the strongest examples of Nexus points in our recent history. You might say that a Nexus is like plot armor.
So you have one mistake and then one person who suddenly shatters the course of history.
And she is a Nexus point in theory. I mean, being Tavern is basically like uber Nexus-y, right? I mean, he pulls everything he needs. Hello, Earthlings! Welcome back to the Thunder and Dice channel with your boys, the Thunder and Dice Brothers. And we are coming back at you from the sci-fi excursion that is Babylon 5. And Ian and I were recently watching the Season 3 finale, Zahadum. And there was a great quote that really sparked some discussion, so we wanted to share that discussion with you guys. If you all remember, he's sitting in a room with a bunch of humans that have been inhabited by shadows that were part of Anna's mission.
Yeah, Justin, Anna, and Dermorden.
Exactly. So he's talking to Sheridan, and he's like, I'll quote directly, "You're what they call a nexus. You turn one way, and the whole world has a tendency to go the same way." And so that brought us to a whole bunch of questions about, all right, Nexus points in storytelling. How are they categorized? Because we think that some of them could be sort of like God is in control of these people's actions or the reasons they're there. Or there can be just like causality loops that are just sort of natural and they happen because of events and circumstances. And beyond what we see in stories and in television and books, is it real life? Like, are there real life nexuses, nexi? Are people that important individually in the moment? Can we classify and recognize them then when it's happening? Or is this just a convenient way to frame a story? Because we have a frame of reference. We have a person to follow, and we see the events through their eyes, you know? So I'll let Ian go into what we have sort of a rough working definition of what we think a Nexus point might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So a Nexus point we would categorize as someone who shapes a cause and is so important to said cause that if removed, their followers would continue on their crusade or would do anything to prevent their death. So, really good examples right here. Randall Thor in Wheel of Time.
Yeah, he sprung out instantly in my mind.
Yeah, like, you know, Dragon Reborn, destined to fight the Dark One, destined to break the world and heal the world at the same time, has prophecies abound him.
I mean, being Tavern is basically like uber Nexus-y, right? I mean, he pulls everything he needs in the moment and even before he knows it towards him. He is born with certain things in place that allow him to succeed. He's born in a place to a mother and taken by a stepfather to another place where he grows up with these people in such a way, in such an environment that leads him to be a different person than his previous incarnations had been. And that's all part of his nexuses. It's all things swirling around him to pull the things that he needs to succeed well before he's even, you know, speaking. And this continues forever and only gets ridiculously strong, you know? You might say that a nexus is like plot armor.
Yes, but in Randall Thor's case, plot armor on steroids, jumped up with some Bane juice, and also turbocharged in a sun.
Yeah.
Like, it is the most Nexus-y of Nexuses. Now, the next level of Nexuses, I'm going to call it, is the Frodo tier, where you have both predetermination and, like, predestination in this respect, because, like, you know, Frodo was the only one who could carry the ring that far.
Gandalf says it very well. You were meant to have the ring, just as Bilbo was meant to have it.
To find it. Yeah, there are forces greater than you and I at work in this world. Galadriel also, you know, says, like, if you do not find a way, no one will. There are some other mitigating circumstances that help Frodo complete his mission, because obviously he isn't the one who throws the ring into the cracks of doom. It is a curse that Frodo lays upon Gollum, and then Gollum touches him and takes the ring, and then thus the fulfillment of the curse that allows the ring to be destroyed, because the ring is made of such an evil that no person, not even Sauron himself, the Maker, could destroy the ring. You needed a power above angels and gods. You needed the god. So in this respect, the agency is all there for Frodo and everyone else that's doing their stuff, but you needed an overarching hand, the hand of God, but not quite literally
but it was meant to happen.
It was meant to happen this way.
And it could only have happened that way if it had been Mary, for example. You don't think that this would have succeeded. It had to have been Frodo. It had to have been Bilbo. Just like it had to be Aragorn.
Yeah. Like all the right people at the right time in the right places to make everything happen.
So that's a different kind of Nexus, though, than we're thinking about. Rand al'Thor, he's pulling everything towards him in this, I can imagine, sort of a whirlpool with him being the center of it. Everything is drawn towards him. He takes where he needs and he uses it up. Frodo, in terms of his Nexuses, Nexi, whatever, his ability to be a Nexus point, he keeps Sam and the fierce loyalty of Sam with him. He has this innate ability that some hobbits, or a lot of hobbits, seem to have to resist the evil and sort of stay all hobbit-like and very, very simple and pure and, not complicated with ambition, I guess you could say.
The follies of men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his Nexus is subtle. Compared to Rand.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Rand is like, that's why I gave Rand's example the first, because he is the chief Nexus character. Frodo is like below that. But then you have other characters. Like in this respect, these two Nexuses that we're talking about, we just classified them as predetermined. The other classification...
The creator, set the wheel in motion. Rand al'Thor, or a dragon, was always going to be reborn. It was always going to do the things that needed to happen so that the Dark One could be either defeated or imprisoned, or, let's not spoil it, killed. Who knows what happens to the Dark One if you haven't read all 14 books.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other category we have are natural Nexus points. A good example of this is Star Trek City of the Edge of Forever. Edith Keeler is a Nexus point in the respect that she is completely useless to the timeline.
She's not a cause. She doesn't have a cause or followers that are going to step up and carry out her mantle.
But not yet. But that's only because she dies.
Right.
But when McCoy goes back and screws with time accidentally because of some bullshit drug MacGuffins, she then rallies a cause, convinces the Americans not to get into World War II, thus allowing Germany to get the atom bomb first and dominate the world, thus setting up a domino effect where, in the end,
Starfleet
isn't even created. So you have one mistake and then one person who suddenly shatters the course of history.
And she is a Nexus point in theory, it's not actually, she isn't an Nexus point as the way the story unfolds, because she dies and she doesn't sort of become and fulfill that role. And this is a good contrast. The last couple Nexus points we've talked about there are generally positive, like Rand al'Thor is the champion of the creator, essentially, and he's going to be fighting the Dark One. That's a good thing. Frodo and Sam, they're on their way to Mordor to destroy the One Ring, the most evil, incarnate, distilled thing ever. So that's a good thing, getting rid of that.
Yeah.
Edith Keeler, though, her Nexus ability is something that it's admirable, laudable. She wants the peace, and she wants to go the way of passive, resistance.
Yeah.
Not going the way of the military-industrial complex and fighting this war out. And in so doing, she becomes a Nexus point, a rallying point for people with all the best intentions that go so horribly poorly.
Yeah,
absolutely. So it's an interesting, different kind of Nexus, for sure. So we've seen a few different ones.
It's a phantom Nexus.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another good example is Fry.
Which is my favorite kind of goofy Nexus, because, well, it's Futurama, so hell yeah. But so Fry, for those of you who are not familiar with Fry's, say, origin.
Fuck.
He gets sent back in time at one point, kills the man he thinks is his grandfather, and sleeps with his grandmother because he thinks that because he's still alive after having killed his grandfather, that his grandmother can't possibly be his grandmother, but actually it turns out that he is indeed his own grandfather.
What?
And because of that, he is born with an abnormal brain pattern. He's lacking the delta wave that even plants and some trees exhibit. And that's to his advantage, because when the evil brains that want to take over the universe or destroy the universe by absorbing all the known universal knowledge, and once they've completed everything they can, they destroy the universe so there's no more knowledge to complete. Their task is done. Fry has to stop that from happening because he's the only one whose brain isn't affected by their psionic brainwave MacGuffin. So there's this causality loop. There's the doing the nasty and the pasty so that he's got the delta brainwave problem so that he can go solve this problem. And actually, he's even led to do this because he's born 1,000 years too early to solve this crisis. And so these Nibelunians, who were teenagers when the universe was formed, sit there and wait, and they know it's gonna be Fry, and they know it's gonna be important 1,000 years. They drop him into a freezer tube, and he gets to wake up 1,000 years later, continue his life, and they guide him to that end. And actually, the sinister part of all this, of course, is that they remove all his agency in this. You think for a long time that he falls into the freezer by happenstance. It's coincidence. It's just an accident. No, actually, there's little Nibbler pushing him in there, just tapping his chair. So beyond that as well, there's no clearly defined way for him to escape when he blows up the brain hive mind. Like, they have to, first they give him the Scooty Puff Jr., which sucks, and he can't get out of there. So he has to yell, next time make it the Scooty Puff Sr., as he's literally dying, I think. So he dies in that timeline.
It is possible for the Philip Fry to resume his life on December 31st, 1999.
Really? I can go back in time?
And they just go like, okay, shit, in 1,000 years, I'll tell you what happened. And they go back in time and do it all over again. So Fry is this weird nexus point too, where he's not gonna be a rallying cry and get a bunch of followers and we're gonna have a crusade or something like that. That's more Bender's sort of thing, I think, actually. No, Fry is just so important to the fate of the universe so many times that so many things had to happen that ancient creatures are guiding his path the entire way, and then there's the actual bionic god in the space that says, you've done everything right. No one will know you've done anything at all. So that leaves the door open too, where is it predestined or is it natural? There's a causality loop. He had to go back in time to bang his grandmother so that he could be born with a messed up brain so that he could save the universe.
Yeah.
Weird ass nexus.
Yeah, really weird ass nexus. And it is an excellent nexus, and it's super funny, and it's a great story. And as my brother was retelling this episode, I was trying so hard not to laugh to disrupt it. So Fry is a great example of a nexus point. Another great example of a nexus point, Archer in Enterprise. Crewman Daniels says 1 billion times, without you, the Federation never exists.
Yeah, he is the closest to the Sheridan the Sheridan Nexus that I can bring up, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we could do technically some bullshit about Cisco being part wormhole alien bullshit, but that's not necessarily that's a little too far. Enterprise and Archer is the better.
There's a ton of examples. We could go on infinitum, I think.
You really could in Star Trek. But Archer is really good. And then
because he there's a lot of things he does as well that kind of back up the fact that he's necessary for the foundation of the Federation, because he does in the fourth season. This is where all the good, that's all the magic happens. You're he starts out in the third season a little bit where he's getting Shran to help out with the Xindi problem. So you're already starting to form a friendship with the Andorians.
Yep.
And then he comes out and bails Shran out a couple times, so it gets a little bit more tight. And now there's this thing where it's interdimensional or interspecies treachery going on, where you've got the Tellarites and you've got the Andorians, you've got the humans, and unbeknownst to them, there's actually the Vulcan cousins.
The Romulans.
Romulans, thank you very much. The Romulans are out there actually fucking around and having a crazy ship that cloaks themselves to look like something else, disguises itself to look like a different ship.
Yeah.
So Archer starts to seize the Federation by solving this galaxy-wide problem with all these people, getting them together, work together for the first time. And of course, the final episode, which they do allude to it a little bit, they do show him going out and delivering a speech the first day of the Federation. So, fine. Crewman Daniels is annoying as hell, and the Temporal Cold War crap bugs us, but Archer is totally like a nexus point in that respect. All these things seem to happen only because he's in command, or he's involved with it, or he's been sent back in time for unknown freaking reasons.
Yeah.
Nazi aliens.
Yeah, Nazi aliens, right? And then to wind it back to the original nexus point that got this video started, Sheridan. Now, Sheridan, he's not just... there are 3 nexus points in Babylon 5. So you have Sinclair, who is a nexus point...
That was,
because he goes back in time and becomes Valen, defeats the Shadows...
We're now speaking of this from the perspective of the episode Babylon Squared.
Yes.
Plus, not all the way into, season 5 and stuff. This is mid B5 still we're talking here.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this does change a little bit, because he will shift from being the one that will be the one that is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he goes back in time, helps defeat the Shadows, forms the Grey Council, creates peace in Minbar, does all that type of thing, leaves Minbar with a Minbari wife, has some bastard children. Those children go back to Minbar, seed a buttload of foreign DNA. Then flash forward 1,000 years, you get Delenn with some seeded DNA, which allows her to use the Triluminaries, and that allows her to
turn herself into
turn her into a half-breed to stop the soul transference from Minbari to elves.
Minbari to humans.
Minbari to humans and everything. And she is the second one in this respect for Babylon 5. She's the one who is helping glue everything together.
In the moment.
In the moment. And then leading to Sheridan.
Sheridan doesn't quite believe yet.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
that point in the story.
Yeah, at that point, Sheridan is still very much on, Team Earth Force. I don't really know much about the first ones. I haven't had the boatload of my experiences.
All this soul stuff sounds pretty hokey.
Yeah, Kosh has yet to give me lessons about who I am and what I want. All the soul stuff sounds very hokey. I mean, he even says, the president is the only one who knows the reason why the Minbari stopped the soul, and he doesn't believe it, and I can't blame him. I don't either, but they believe it, and that's what matters. And so then he gets his transformation to becoming, takes command of the Rangers, or co-command with the Rangers with Delenn. He leads in the Shadow War. He dies, comes back with a fucking with the OG original first alien
oldest of old
god
ones.
And everything to then lead humanity and everyone in this epic clash against the Vorlons and the Shadows. And then on top of that, because his legacy isn't good enough, we gotta drive it even higher. He then leads a coup against his own tyrannical government, a multifaceted alliance when it's not just Earth Force, it's aliens. They all band together, and not because they want to conquer Earth, because they need Earth to be the shining beacon of hope that it is. They need Earth to be the center of the universe, because humans are the only ones who form communities out of every single alien race, and without them, the universe basically becomes splintered and fractured, because everyone is so self-absorbed and so self-interested that they can't understand that we rise and fall together, except Jakar. But that only happens because of some revelation that he gets from Kosh. But going back to Sheridan, so then he leads a revolution, kicks out the tyrannical government in Earth, creates a multi-planet alliance, and then goes on to, help fight the remnants of the Shadow War afterwards with the Drakh. And then you have everything with the telepath wars, or the telepath struggle for a homeland, and he's basically at the forefront of that too, closing off his life and the trinity of ones in this story when he, flies off into the wild Black Yonder, and Lorien comes right before he's about to die. He's like, "Did you really think that we had forgotten you? Come, I'm gonna take your body and your soul, and we're gonna usher you away to whatever the fuck happens afterwards." And then, the White Star will be found by forces, and they will report back to Delenn, and she'll be like, "Yeah, the White Star was found, but no body was ever discovered," and that's gonna be the closing out of Babylon 5. So you get 3 Nexus points in Babylon 5 in the same episode. Not in the same episode. Well, yes, in the same episode,
yes,
but in the same show. So that's all the Nexus points in stories, in fiction, that we have all written.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. Yeah, that was
and
not an exhausted list. This
and
was
they're
a
not
very
all the
cursory
same,
glance.
for sure, too. That some of them have a lot of things in common, but there's variation in what we can define as a nexus, So
yeah.
But yeah, that leads us to the question: Is any of this real?
Yeah. Do Nexus points exist in reality?
Are they people? And how do we recognize them when it's happening? Or is that what really differentiates the fiction of a Nexus point to the reality of a Nexus point?
That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that Nexus points in reality exist, but the true impact and their true purpose and what they accomplish in their life is never revealed in their life and in the subsequent decades. You need time to be able to look back and understand the overarching themes that got this person to become so important, and how their actions changed the future. So one really good example here would be Lincoln. Lincoln is, and don't freak out when I say this, inconsequential to anything before his election. Yes, he was a lawyer, he helped people out, but it isn't until he becomes elected in November that when I say the world, America starts changing. Because after his election and before his inauguration in March, he wasn't even inaugurated, he wasn't president, 11 states secede from the Union. That is something, before he even gains any real power, he has theoretical power, 11 states break the Union. So, and then there's a subsequent...
This is well before we have 50 states, too, so that's a big deal. I mean,
It's
11
more
is a
than
big
half.
deal forever, but yes, that was huge. Everything else was territories at that point.
Yeah. And then you have the Civil War, which was, at first definitely saying, war to keep the Union together. We're obviously not talking about slavery. And then you get a few years later and then the Emancipation Proclamation comes in, like, okay, yeah, guys, we're going to cut the Band-Aid off. This is about slavery. You guys are fucking pricks. Shut the fuck up. Stop enslaving humans. And we are going to, by force, in a very, very, very brutal way, put you down. And then he dies for it, but his cause is not abandoned.
Yeah,
His
can you imagine
followers-
if everyone just did a 180 afterwards? I mean, too many people did.
Yeah, too many
and we're
people
still
wanted to.
paying the consequences for that right now, paying the price for that right now, generations on. But in the moment, yes, without Lincoln, you don't get emancipation right now, the way that the history worked out. Without emancipation, you don't get the opportunities for any of the civil rights leaders to be educated and come to philosophical conclusions about the nature of dreams and humanity and equality. That's something that only exists
because of Lincoln's
you are
actions
a slave. And for better or worse, the Civil War, while it may not have been the stated goal in the beginning to emancipate the slaves in America, it became about that when the states seceded because of it.
Yeah.
And the states said in their very, very early secession documents, we get to keep slaves, god damn it.
Yeah.
And it's not even, anyone who says otherwise needs to please review their history.
Yeah, absolutely. Another really good nexus point in history, Alexander the Great. You know, you're talking about a dude who in less than 20 years conquered basically everything he could put his sights to, and the only reason he stopped was because his own generals were like, you know what, fuck you, we have so much loot and spoils, we want to go home.
Yeah.
But in that like
He
20
brought
years,
the Hellenization of the world.
you don't
essentially.
get Rome without Alexander the Great turning the backwater of Italy into something that has the potential to become Rome with the Hellenization.
And let's not forget, Greeks like to say that Alexander was Greek, but no. Macedonians will always tell you for sure.
Yeah, they will.
Greek my ass, but that's neither here nor there. But the fact that they want to fight about over who gets him
shows you how
thousands,
important.
millennia later, like, and it's not just like he had an effect on Rome, and Rome exists because of that. It was beyond that too. I mean, Northern Africa,
Egypt
was fundamentally changed because of Alexander.
Yeah, you have a whole new dynasty, the Ptolemies, coming to Egypt. Cleopatra, you assholes, if you don't fucking know this, is a descendant
of Alexander.
Well, technically one of Alexander's generals.
All right,
but
fair point.
but still, you don't get that line without Alexander stationing whatever his name is in Egypt. So
talk about the long rippling effects of his. I mean, we are probably still feeling them today.
Yeah, we still call him Alexander the Great, even though he was basically a mass murderer, if you really want to look at it.
Just like Genghis Khan, you know, he was a great man and also mass murderer.
Yeah.
However, you know, we do have this canonized version of Alexander, don't we? A little bit. Like, he's sort of exalted beyond others, above others. You know, obviously, time is a big factor there as well. The fact that he died so young helps his cause, ironically, as well, because much like James Dean, he didn't live long enough to not be cool and old, right? You know, like, he kind of went out at the top of his game, and that's how we remember his rise and fall.
Though, unlike James Dean, he has a very boring death because he drinks himself into a coma.
Yep. Rock stars.
Rock stars and Alexander, what do they got in common? Bad drinking habits, folks.
Cue the Hendrix.
Right.
And we sort of have, I don't know, we've got Napoleon as well, if you want to talk about it like a really Eurocentric view still. Napoleon changed the face of Europe and the nature of warfare, and changed the way that, you know, nations looked at their governments, essentially. You know, like, this was the revolution that took care of the monarchy, the revolution after the revolution. You know, we're talking 1800s right here. This is the height of British naval power and empire building. You have Napoleon creating brand new ways to fight land-based warfare, new tactics, new formations. It was
crushing everywhere, basically, except a few small defeats. I mean, like, wielding more, I mean, like, before Napoleon, the last time armies on the continental Europe were that large was the Roman Empire. So you were talking thousands of years in between, tens of thousands of people, you know, actually amassing into one army,
and
multiple
truly,
armies.
the First World War
Honestly, yeah, because it reaches all of Europe. I mean, you go down to Napoleon invades Egypt and Syria.
It affected America,
It
the United
affected
States, I mean.
like, in multiple ways. I mean, you have, like, both it distracts of Britain, in 1812, but it also, America adopts the Napoleonic system for employment in the military.
So that's a huge deal, too.
That's a huge deal, too, exactly. So, he has, like, he shatters a lot of
Established traditions and preconceptions about warfare and leadership of countries.
Yeah. So, super precedent.
Of course, once again, not only was he defeated and sent away to exile, but he was so charismatic and such a nexus that he was able to come back from it and try again.
Yeah.
And he still had followers and people who were willing to throw themselves.
And they didn't dare kill him. They exiled him first. Like, we're not going to kill Napoleon because that might cause France to freak the fuck out. We'll exile him. And then he comes back, and they're like, all right, fuck it, now we have to kill him. Slow poison. And when I mean slow, over the course of a few days. But we just gotta fucking kill him. So, like, that's how much of a threat he was. For an honorable shout out, we're gonna give MLK a little bit of love right here, Martin Luther King.
Civil rights,
because,
nexus.
Whilst there is... The reason we don't give him a full podium finish is because there are too many other factors in Martin Luther King's story.
And too many other civil rights leaders around before and after him as well.
Yeah.
So it's wholly unfair to all the other people to say that, he was a nexus. He's just one of those ones. He gets streets named after him, and he gets a holiday named after him, So we always think of MLK as the civil rights leader.
Yeah.
But there were so many more before and after that he certainly doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, yeah, he's just the most famous. He's the pinnacle and probably the greatest of them.
And
mostly because
fantastic
of his death.
orator and his death and the scandal of being investigated
By the
and
FBI,
all that stuff.
And try to get him to commit suicide by saying, oh yeah, we know you've been cheating or some shit like
and
that.
And he's also been canonized a little bit.
Yeah,
We've
very
also
canonized.
put him up on a pedestal just like we tend to do with our heroes. So sometimes don't look too deeply into the personal lives of them, but let's appreciate all of
what they did for the world.
The awareness that they're bringing to these kind of issues. I mean, without them, Lyndon B. Johnson doesn't sign the Civil Rights Act. We need that kind of pressure to make these things happen. So for that reason, he gets our honorable mention for that. But that does lead us to a bit of a somber conclusion because we've been skirting
on the positive side of the Nexus points, and whilst it's easy to point out the people we have pointed out, the next example of a Nexus point that we will give will lead you to think of everyone else in this same category. And the Nexus point we're talking about is Adolf Hitler, because you cannot name a person more...
You cannot tell the history of the 20th century onwards without discussing the rise and fall of the Nazi regime and Hitler in particular.
Yeah, like everything changes. You do not get the world order and America coming out on top of the world order for 80 years after 1945 without Hitler. You don't get 12 million dead Jews and Germans and other people dead without Hitler. You don't get the millions that died on the Soviet side without Hitler. You don't get the atom bomb, honestly, in this respect, without Hitler, because that was the necessity for why the Americans started, the Manhattan Project. So, like,
and he has all the hallmarks of a Nexus point beyond just the ripples effect of his actions and existence. There were people who were ready to take his place if he went down. There were people that were hardcore true believers who followed his cult of personality.
Yeah.
Who believed in his message and his ideals.
Who believed in him so much that they were willing to kill themselves, their wives, and their 7 children.
Specifically, we're talking about
Goebbels.
Goebbels, exactly. Let's
just
be clear about that.
Yeah.
And he's just one example. All the people in the Philip bunker at the very, very end were all levels of fanatics in some way, even the secretaries. They may swear up and down that they weren't. You don't get to be secretary for Hitler without being a true party member. You can't pretend that you were, as they say in Todeswinkel, they always one of the secretaries famously said that she was in a blind spot. She had a blind spot for the entire ordeal and didn't see what was going on. But that could be a topic for a whole different day, for a very depressing day. But
yes,
we definitely want to leave you with that kind of somber moment that Nexus points can be real. We can only identify them in the past tense, because in the moment we have no way of really seeing what their long-lasting impacts are going to be. And not only that, the worst, most impactful people might be some of the strongest examples of Nexus points in our recent history.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, especially in the 20th century. There are more Nexus points that are evil than there are light, unfortunately. But with that, real sobering and uplifting end to this topic, let us know what you guys think and who you might have mentioned as a Nexus point, or if you want to knock one of ours off, like Napoleon, Alexander, or Lincoln, because, they weren't great enough. Tell us
Do
why.
tell. Until next time, we've been Thundering Dice, and sayonara.
See you guys later.